just did that picture for the info. So looks like you're interested in reading blueprints. Well, I have something just for you. This is basic blueprint readings, the necessary components. So this is just a very beginning intro to reading blueprints. So you found the spot. So before we get started, a little bit about myself. I've been a quality tech and engineer for going on 23 years. So I have a pretty in-depth knowledge of basic blueprints. So I took this and I kind of narrowed it down to what you need to know to start learning how to read blueprints. But before we get started, make sure you follow that link and you get the accompanying training manual that we created. It goes a little bit more in detail, a little bit more in depth. So if you haven't done it, go ahead and get that done. All right, so the whole purpose that I created this was to help introduce usually people just coming in the workforce or people who haven't been exposed to this type of manufacturing work before on how to learn how to start to read the blueprints. So with that being said, this was designed specifically in mind for very, very, very beginners for blueprint reading. So you can read that if you want yourself, but this, like I said, this is just for the very basic beginner. So if you have any experience with this, you'll probably find this really boring. Okay, so what you should expect to get out of this training. We have here listed objectives. So basically, number one, you're going to be able to identify and interpret what's within the title block itself. Number two, identify the revision level blocks and what actual revision the print's at. Three, so you're going to identify and interpret notes. That one's a bit tricky. So this one might come with a little bit of life experience moving forward too. So four, understanding all the lines on a print. There's a lot of different types of lines, and we'll go through that. Number five, determine part orientation. This is probably the biggest issue that a lot of people have, is trying to interpret how that print and how that part is supposed to be shown. So number six, identify the dimensional callouts and where they're actually coming from, which ties back into how the part's orientated. So you need to learn that first, right? And then number seven, those dimensions got to have a tolerance. So we're going to go through the basic tolerances of those. So what exactly is a blueprint? So you can think of a blueprint as instructions on how to make anything. You can make a blueprint for basically anything. A lot of manufacturers use them, home builders, auto manufacturers use those. So overall, it's the language of manufacturing, and like any language, you have to learn it. So it's just a general, how do you make this part? So and the name blueprint comes from actually way back when manufacturing really started taking a hold on the entire continent. They had these big machines that would only print blue lines, and from that they would print out these large piece of paper called blueprints, because it was literally blueprint on white paper. So that's what early draftsmen used to print those off, and the name took hold and stuck. So why are blueprints really necessary? They keep everybody in the loop on how to make that part, and everybody can be in line and understand what's going on with that part. It keeps those parts consistent over time. So we can take that blueprint and should be able to take it to any shop, and they should be able to manufacture that to those specifications. Overall, blueprint is the master. When in doubt, check the blueprint. All right, first off, blueprints. So the first thing you really need to identify is the title block. So as you can see on the screen, we have the title block with all its relative information. Basically, it's always going to be in the bottom right-hand corner. And it generally has the same-ish setup. So with that, we'll kind of go through each. So number 1 here is the tolerance block, or otherwise specified tolerancing, or title block tolerancing. So this is actually will come in later, and we will use this like when we start going through dimensioning probably quite a bit. So if you don't know what the tolerance is, more than likely it's going to be this tolerance block zone. Number 2, it's the name of the drawing owner, the company. So this is who the drawing belongs to. Some manufacturers will use other manufacturers' drawings to produce the part for them. So this kind of keeps it clear on whose is who. So number 3, size. Drawing size is really mainly for draftsmen. It's not something that most production guys will have to ever worry about, or even quality guys would have to worry about. So you might have to use size when it comes for printing off the blueprint, but other than that, don't worry too much about it. Number 4 is the date. This is the date that the print was created. I've seen dates go all the way back to like 1971, 1968. So some blueprints are out there for damned ever, and that's just the way it is sometimes. Okay, so number 5, drawing name. Okay, so a drawing name can be a little tricky at times because it can contain both letters and numbers, or a combination of both. So as you can see over here, it can either be a 1, 2, 3 or ABC, or it can be a 1, 2, 3 ABC. A lot of companies will do a numerical set with like a -A, -B after. That's very common. Or they'll do just a 1, 2, 3 or just a ABC. That's up to the company. All right, so number 6 is revision. This is critical when you are starting to manufacture. Sometimes there are changes. You want to make sure you're on the correct revision that the customer is calling out. Okay. So 7, scale. Again, this is more for drafters, but it can be helpful when you're interpreting larger prints or parts that are so big that you have to compress and manipulate it onto the paper. That's more advanced. So go see one of my other training videos, and we cover that in depth. So number 8, basically who drew the print. That way you have a name that goes to the company that you can contact if need be. Okay, so 9. This is just checked and approved by. So these are other names that people verified the print was accurate. And number 10, this one's critical. Sheets. How many pages does the print have? So always double check, make sure you have all the pages, 1 of 1, 2 of 2. And that's because you can miss a lot of information, a lot of critical, especially notes on second and third pages. All right, up next, revision blocks. So within the title block, I told you there was a revision number. That's the most current revision. But if you want to see prior revisions, let's find the revision block. The revision block is sometimes in the top right-hand corner, sometimes it's right above the title block, sometimes it's just in a random spot. So this one can be a little difficult to identify, but in general, it'll have 4 different sections. It'll have the actual revision, the actual description, the date of the revision, and who approved it. So it's kind of a mini title block condensed down. It's generally just a running log of the changes that have happened on the print. So if you want to see why this dimension changed, or you remember it being a different dimension, check the revision log. It probably got updated. All right, so here are just some more examples of revision blocks. Again, they can change depending on company, print to print, but they generally have the 4 main areas identified in the previous slide. Some of them just add in extra names for approvals and projects, like as in the first one. All right, notes section. This one can be a little confusing until you get a little bit more experience under your belt. But but generally a note is just anything extra that the draftsman or the engineers want to add on to the print. It can generally be in a little blocked section, like on the picture here in the bottom left, but they don't have to be. They can be in the top left, they can be above the title block, heck, they can even be just an arrow with something written in there, like Surface Finish, RA16, specifying a note for a specific part or feature. And another little quirk of these is they can have what they call note flags, and we'll have an example in the next slide. That's basically where they just tie a triangle to the note 1 and a triangle to a dimension, and it says this dimension has a note 1, and you just connect triangles at that point. So here are just some extra note examples, like you have on the right hand side here. This is generally what notes look like, 1, 2, 3 with some verbiage. Or down here, inline dimension text. So this one is a tolerance per a note, which specifies a spec, which is a specification by a regulating body. But here is where the note flags come into play. They can look like any of these. So it could have a note where a dimension should be, just like this example. So the circle, a hexagon, a triangle, a little flag, sidewards, triangle. That depends on the company. It's not really standardized. So if you see a triangle, more likely it refers to a note. That seems to be the common practice that I've ran into. Okay, object lines. So this is the main critical part of lines on a print. It is a solid, bold, continuous line. It indicates the outline or the shape of the part from the view that you're looking at it. If you look on the print here, this is what they call a spanner wrench, and I highlighted the actual outline of the part. Alright, so I took this print and I added highlights to all the other types of lines that's on a print. There are a lot of lines on a print. Your best friend is to be able to determine each type of line on a print. So we already talked about the object line print. So if we go to number 2, or the orange, this is a hidden line. So this is basically a hole or something going through a part, and the lines are dashed. So you have little dashes to indicate the line is there, but you can't directly see it from this view. Number 3 is the green. This is a center line. So this identifies the center of a feature. So this is one large line in the center with little dashes on the side. So this is going to indicate a center line. Number 4 is blue. A phantom line is going to be a bunch of little dashes with one longer dash, little dash, long dash, little dash. And a phantom line indicates that this is extending from an already previous feature, but it is not necessarily on a print. It's just helping you highlight like the curvature of a radius, as the example on here. So number 5 in purple is the lines coming from the numbers. Those are called dimension lines. And number 6, the gray on the right hand side going to the green center line on the left hand side. So if you got the purple lines, you have the gray, and then you have the green. Those two lines are what we call extension lines. They extend to the feature from the dimension reference. Okay, so then we move on to part orientation. So generally you have 2 part orientations that we use. First angle, third angle. There is a second angle, but that's no bueno here in the US. Most engineers refuse to use that, so you'll hardly ever see that. So if you see it, you might want to read up on it. It's really confusing. But the first angle, third angle is pretty simple. So with the first angle, if you look at the picture on the left hand side, you have your first angle and then you have your third angle. This right here is what we call the tipping method, where the bottom of the part always stays orientated to the direction from which it came. So bottle of glue, right? So first angle, you're just going to push the part over. That's the way the view looks. If you want to say the other side, the other way. Pretty straightforward. Some people do have a little bit of troubles trying to determine that. But third angle seems like it's confusing, but it's really not once you start getting into the swing of manufacturing. So third angle is the opposite. The top of the part always stays oriented from which it came. They call this the roll method. So what you're going to do, so say bottle glue. So we're going to take it, we're going to hold it like this, and we're just going to roll the bottom to that view. And if it's on the left hand side, we're just going to roll the bottom. The top always stays to the from which it came. Okay, as tipping method, the bottom right here stays from which it came, right here. Okay, practice, practice, practice. That'll help you on the long run. Okay, so we've already been through a dimension line, but I wanted to re-highlight dimension lines and the different ways they can be used. So they're coming from the number, going to the extension line, which then touches the part, or a center line, or some part of the feature. But if you look on the bottom, you can actually see that they don't have to be linear. They can be at an angle too. So, but generally it's going to be two bolt lines with a number in between. So when you're measuring from a dimension line, you want to take it from that exact. So you want to try to measure exactly like the print's telling you, not angled, directly straight on like with the 4 inches right there. Try to replicate that. All right, so feature types. I know I've said the word feature a few times, but here's a list of general features that you're going to see. This is a very basic, not all-encompassing list. So there's other techniques and drawing methods out there. GDT is a big one that's starting to come into best practice everywhere. So, but you might have a special bonus at the end with that one to help introduce you to that. So diameter, number one, diameter. It's a circle, like a hole. Spherical diameter, that's going to be more like having a marble on a part or half a marble. A radius is just going to be any type of semicircle. You can actually use a radius and a diameter interchangeably. A spherical radius, again, that's more of a marble spherical radius, so half the spherical diameter. All right, here's a big one. Reference dimension. So if you see those parentheses around a number, that's saying that dimension should be around in here. No tolerancing required on that. Okay, two more. Counterbore and countersink. Pretty much the same thing. One's square, one's a V. It's to help sink screws or other mating parts below a surface. So you'd have the square here, the screw would be sunk down below the surface. And then number of times, this could be 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times. This just tells you how many holes should be on that surface of the part with that dimension. So it'll say 4 times 4 inches, 4 times 1/4 inch. So you should have 4 holes with a 1/4 inch. Okay, tolerancing goes in line with dimensioning. Tolerancing is just how big or small that feature can be. What's the upper limit? What's the bottom limit? So if you look on the left-hand side, we have what we call unilateral, and on the right we have bilateral. So basically unilateral is +0, minus something, or opposite. All the tolerances on one side. Everything's plus or everything's minus. Same thing with angles. Everything's plus, no minus, and vice versa. Bilateral is where you have tolerancing on the both plus and minus side. That can either be symmetrical tolerancing or unsymmetrical tolerancing, plus or minus 2, or +1, -2. And then limit tolerancing. Limit tolerancing is basically just someone saying this is how big it can be, this is how small it can be. You don't have to do the math. They've done the math for you. Alright, so now that I've taken 20 minutes of your time, hopefully that was helpful in some sense to help get you started on your road to reading blueprints. If you want to test your knowledge, that link right there, Basic Blueprint Test, take the test for me. Let me know how well you did. Leave it in the comments or send me an email. Email's on the first page. Go ahead and send it to me. So if you wouldn't mind, I use all feedback I have to help build this program better. If it's something you want added, something that didn't make sense, I can clarify. Take that survey and email that to me. I'll be glad to look at it and make some changes. So again, thanks for watching. Go check out my other videos.